Patrick, a little shocking news today, at least shocking to me. TSN 1040 is no more after 20 years as the forerunner, the first sports talk radio station in Vancouver. They're changing formats, everyone losing their jobs. We all know, we live the problems in the media in this industry, but this is far more drastic than I ever would have realized, considering Bell made cuts in all their other areas last week.
hmm
It's stunning to see that that the whole station is gone.
Yeah, and talking with people, I mean, it was a complete shock at the station, of course, and talking to people from on the outside, and this was in many ways there was still a lot going there. There were a lot of happy advertisers, I'm told. It's just in many ways, I suppose, a brutal, cruel, heartless statement about, I guess, the future of this kind of radio. Um, but really, this was a place that people cared about, had a lot of, as you've already mentioned, was, in many ways the sort of leading voice, had been the leading voice, the only voice for such a long time, but remained the leading voice. And big, big influence, big conversation setter still, even in the era of social media.
Killing
Uh,
killing the opposition in the ratings by
yeah,
what, 3-4 to 1? Like it's
if you're looking at Bell's perspective, tells you everything. Is that didn't even matter in their equation. They're looking forward, I guess, and saying we can go other ways, we can spend money in different ways. We're not interested in this. I mean, it's strange though. I mean, this was such a big
oh,
presence for them
I would
here.
counter that. I don't mean to be so facetious, but I think the idea is how little money can we spend, not spend it in other ways.
No, but that's what I mean, right? In that, what money can we throw at something and what's it going to return? And for some reason, from their calculus is that whatever money, because I don't think they were spending a ton of money here either way. I mean, you're obviously spending a bit of money on your hosts,
Yeah.
but it's not like that was a huge operation. There were there were a couple dozen people working there, I think, at most. Um, and that's what I mean, is that it's, in the end, they're saying even at that, we're not interested in the future. We think we can spend even less and still make the same amount of money, perhaps even more. It's just a brutal, brutal thing. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because in the end, people care about it. I think the dollars and cents are, nobody cares about that. People just want to hear good chat on the radio. They want to hear what the stories are. And it's bad for us. We need,
Yeah.
we're better when we have rivals.
Brutal is a great word for it. A little bit of personal experience from me. Uh, I used to do the morning show with our dear friend, departed friend Jason Botchford and Scott Rintoul, and I found out that basically our show was ending and being replaced by Bro Jake by reading it in our competitor at the time, the Vancouver Sun Doctor Sports column.
hmm
He knew this was going on, wrote it, and I was in the parking lot of a UBC golf club at a Seahawks golf tournament. Station manager, program director were all in the parking lot when I was confronted with this news. They hadn't had the courtesy to tell me. That's fine. I had another job. These guys don't.
Yeah.
We hear of these brutal, like taking it even out of the sporting realm, just into the labor realm. It's a stunning way to treat people. 8:45, Bruff and Halford on the air. Mics go dead. Twitter account deactivated. So all the listeners are like, what the heck's going on? Some faceless, nameless message goes out that they'd obviously got some guy in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is the guy they use to do the voiceovers, to just read a script, basically telling people.
hmm
And then the song "Good Riddance" by Green Day
Unbelievable.
plays after they give their note. Like, is this not the most disgusting way you've seen employees treated when they're losing their jobs?
It's it is kind of unfathomable. I mean, there's never any easy way to tell someone they don't have a job anymore, but to do it in such a callous way is something else, and to not give anybody a chance to say goodbye. I mean, obviously that is the nice thing about social media, is that everybody can say what they want to say. Certainly they can speak to us if they want to, that kind of thing, but that's just not the same. Um, I mean, the corporate cowardice is that, yeah, we don't even give anybody a chance to say anything at all because we're afraid of what they're going to say. But there are lots of examples of places that have been given their walking papers and a chance to go out on their own terms. And yeah, just the way it was done was so shocking. I mean, you got in touch with me. I was literally getting in the car to take my daughter to daycare, and I had to sit there and figure out in the span of a couple of minutes what's going on. And when you have people saying apparently there's a conference call and that can't be good, you can't help but think the same way. And it's just it's brutal. And I feel for everybody involved. I mean, there are people, of course, that are going to probably land on their feet because they've been doing this a long time. But I feel for any young person that's trying to get into media.
Absolutely.
You look out.
And Patrick, I'm gonna just interject here. Rob Fay drops everything and goes
Yeah,
in to do a show on the weekend because he wants to give the listeners in the station. Chantel Chand,
yeah,
they just given Anissa Hetherington a show. Like this was Jay Swing, Jay Can. This is a station that is packed with young talent that
mhm,
look like, man, they're really
yeah,
emerging. The future is bright. We can make fun of the guys who've been around for a long time, like Donnie and the Moj. Talented guys, and I feel for them today. Especially Bob was one of the drivers in starting that
yeah,
station. But
yeah,
they've kind of had their time. It's the younger people, as you entered. Like, where's the spot for them in sports
yeah.
media?
No, it's terrible. I mean, it's really hard right now, and it's one of those ones where you have to think about. There need to be ways to find new models of doing this stuff because there's a lot of people that have things to say, a lot of important people, or sorry, a lot of people have important things to say, different faces, different voices. And, that was certainly something I think that 1040 was to be commended for because they really were pushing this in trying to push in a new direction, find new ways of presenting themselves. And obviously they had the mainstays and the six hosts who'd been doing what they've been doing for quite a long time, and had long-standing listener loyalty and people cared about them. And we look at guys like Halford and Bruff on the morning show, who obviously used to work here, and what they've been able to do, and they built themselves out into a really solid, well-listened morning show, not just a sports show, but a morning show, and people enjoyed it and went in for it. Yeah, and you've already said people like Chantel Shand, who just have been grinding, and Rob Fay, who went back into it with basically for nothing, wasn't getting paid anything. He was trying to make it work and enjoying it. And I mean, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. I said, how's it going? He said, I love this. This is great. This is what I want. And, trying to create something different in a difficult time slot, and there's no credit. These people they get credit from the audience and from the listeners and from some of the loyalty they'll carry forward with them. But it's such a frustrating reminder how certainly how things sit today, in terms of how corporations operate, is that we're all they just treat everybody like a number, and there's no sort of recognition of talent or ability or anything like that. That in Canada anyway, it's really hard to sort of find yourself and punch your way to the top and stay there.
Biting my tongue here when I hear you talk about like no regard for talent and hey, a well-listened, well-rounded morning show that suddenly disappears. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
Probably if I was into a few Estrellas, I might be a little more frank, but maybe that comes later in the
Yeah.
week. Been through that once before too. I just will finish up though. Obviously, the number one issue is all these people and losing jobs and what happens to their family in the
Yeah.
midst of a pandemic, in the midst of just a disastrous media landscape, which everywhere around the world's going through this, as people don't want to pay for information. But what does this mean for our sports teams? Canucks and Lions were there. Now, Bell
Yeah.
could still put them on 14-10 if they wanted. You talked about competition. What does this mean now for 650? Typically, when the Canucks radio rights would be up, they could play one station against the other. What does this mean for all of our sports properties?
Well, it's interesting. Certainly, 650. Let's be clear, is a place that I contribute to, so always in a funny spot when I have to talk about them. But it is an opportunity for them. There's no doubt about that. It's all about what they end up, first of all, doing with the fact that there's now listeners looking for some sports to listen to. There's also talent now for them to consider. That's certainly going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It's a huge, I think it's a huge opportunity, but they've got to get it right, and they don't have a lot of time to figure this out. Uh, the rights question, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, certainly the Lions have been there for so long. I mean, since the beginning, basically, if I'm not mistaken. I guess, or did they get them from
They got them from
NW
W, yeah.
way back when? But I mean, they've been on the station for a long time. Is the point? Certainly the Whitecaps launched with them, have stayed with them. There's only so much airtime that's going to go on a radio station. 650 all of a sudden has some choices to make, and they are starting from zero almost in many cases. Let's be honest. There's not a, the ratings have not been good for them. So
Except
yeah, what's that?
except when you're on.
Yeah, exactly. But it's 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 gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, because obviously Rogers is a huge, corporate rival with Bell. But in many ways, we'll see how they play out, because it's been a strange journey to date. Obviously started with a lot of noise, but just haven't been able to. We're never able to carve anything really away from 1040, and now that's not even a question. So
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see how that plays out. Certainly interesting to see, what happens with teams like the Lions and the Whitecaps. I mean, are they going to find a new radio home? Does that kind of thing matter anymore? Certainly, we've been touching on that a little bit in our own reporting, and I think that's going to be interesting to watch too. Is there a shift here in terms of how teams do that end of the business? Something that we've always sort of assumed was there, but was really, I think, becoming more and more a niche thing. And it's going to be challenging times. It's not just about listeners, and it's not just about people who work at the station. It's going to be about how we understand our professional sporting universe, both in terms of coverage and in terms of what they mean in sort of the broader consciousness.
Well, I obviously I have a personal connection from my history there, and I know a lot of those guys, and I'm very angry at the moment, as I'm sure you are. And to see the visceral reaction from so many listeners and sports fans in Vancouver out there, it's not a good day at all. But I know you've reached out to people. You read Patrick's story, find it on the web. There's lots of stuff coming in the next day or two, but we'll see where this story goes. Thanks for listening, bro.